We are talking The Equalizer, specifically episode 19 of season 2, titled Coal Black Soul. Now, you may be thinking, why am I reviewing a random episode of The Equalizer? I've just kind of started watching this again, and this is actually one of my favourite episodes. And I thought, oh, do you know what? I could do an episode by episode review, but that's going to take me ages. And I wanted to talk about this one specifically, so let's discuss. This is certainly, I feel, one of the darker episodes of The Equalizer, and one of my personal favourites. And interestingly, with this movie, there's not one gunshot in it. It focuses on this serial killer, who is actually the client of McCall, who of course is the Equalizer, and he is essentially a guy who is completely messed up, has some serious parental issues, and he is killing middle-aged women, and essentially calls McCall up for help, wanting to be stopped. In the meantime, McCall's taken on a second case. You actually get 2 cases for the price of one in this episode, where he's basically this psychiatrist is getting a peeping Tom. So McCall actually obviously stops the peeping Tom, ends up having a bit of a relationship with the psychiatrist, but obviously these 2 cases will collide as this serial killer decides to target the newfound romance in McCall's life. So that's your basic plot here. Why do I like this episode so much? I think this is one of the few episodes that deals with kind of like serial killers and that sort of more sort of twisted sort of crime than we have in the usual Equalizer episodes. You don't have any other kind of supporting cast. Cosmar's not in this episode. But let me go through the things that I do like about this episode. First of all, this is all shot in a kind of a winter landscape, and I feel like New York, with all the kind of the snow, walking through, you know, Manhattan, looks absolutely delightful. It looks so romantic, but also a kind of a strange gothic feel, because you know, obviously we have this serial killer, but the actual locations here all look great. Looks very snowy and kind of cold. The serial killer himself, the 2 things I like about him, his MO, he leaves this kind of silhouette of this kind of black figure standing above his kind of victims, and it looks creepy as hell. It's such a kind of striking visual, and I almost wish that they had done a little more with this, because it is so kind of like twisted. I feel it really makes this episode stand out for me. But his performance as well, because he puts on this the guy who plays the serial killer. I believe the actor's name is Mitchell Leachstein. On the outside of it, he is this kind of very kind of charming young guy who's very sort of polite to women, and he ends up kind of like having this other side to his personality where he's this killer, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And he comes across as really unhinged, really interesting performance. This one is directed by Richard Compton, who has directed basically loads of kind of different TVs, all through X-Files, Miami Vice, Mantis, you name it, Babylon 5. He's done it all. Very little in the way of film credits, but, you know, an accomplished TV director. And I thought Edward Woodward here was really good as this kind of conflicted, ultimately, because he wants to help this guy, but obviously he's abhorred by the kind of the violence this guy is doing. So I thought that was all good. So I really liked his journey in this, and what he has to do, and his meetings with the killer. The only thing that didn't work for me, I've got to say, was the romance, which seemed very forced for this episode. Obviously she's a kind of middle-aged woman herself, and this guy wants to kill middle-aged women. So that all seemed a little bit kind of too convenient to me, and I thought her character was just a little bit too, a little bit too obvious. She happened to be a psychiatrist that can kind of tell McCall, you know, these kind of things that he obviously is going through, and she just seems a little bit too kind of like a bit of a cheesy character. Her performance is too like yippee, hey, I don't know. I didn't really buy that. But overall, I really like this episode. It's one of my favourite episodes of The Equalizer. Possibly my favourite, I've got to say, because this is always the one that stands out for me, because of the imagery here, or the kind of silhouette. It's such a kind of like striking image. This is always the episode I always go back to when I think of The Equalizer as a series. But it's not one that really affects the series as a whole. It doesn't really have any lasting ramifications. But I feel its conclusion as well, the way they kind of wrap it up, is very different how they can ultimately resolve it. It's a very kind of different way of doing it. I thought it worked very well. Overall, I really love this episode. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just let down by the romance angle for me. Have you seen it? What is your favourite episode of The Equalizer? I may do a few of these. Who knows? Let me know what you think. Bye for now.